All right. So this is an introduction workshop to Ruby on Rails. It will be twofold. I will introduce you to the concepts of Ruby on Rails, and then afterwards I will try to go through creating a very simple web app with you. So for the first part, you just have to listen, but for the second part, you need your laptop and you need to follow my lead. So, hello? So, this is what we are going to do today. I will explain Rails to you. You will get Rails running, and then we kick off a Rails app. So, first, the explanation. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Ruby on Rails, have maybe used it before, or stuff like that. For web apps, and web apps are simple things. They are only presentation and manipulation of data. Right? There's no magic to it. It's just you have your data and you present it somehow. And then maybe you have your users manipulate it. So Rails has some specific philosophies about that. And that is what makes it currently the cool kid on the block. It's not the tools, it's not the Ruby language, it's not stuff like that, it's the philosophy behind it. So I think I'll explain a little bit what this is about. It's actually, this is the philosophy of Rails. I like it because it's also my life philosophy. So Rails is about getting shit done. It's not about having it your way, it's about getting a web app fast. So this is what really makes Rails stand out and what has it set apart from all the other web frameworks and PHP and stuff like that you know. It's really, the framework has one philosophy, is getting shit done. So how does it do that? First of all, Rails is a framework, and as you can guess from the name framework, it gives you a frame to work in. So it's about limitation. You can only do things in a certain way. Of course, there are different ways to do some stuff, but it limits you in your tools, in your language, in the way you work. So it's about limitation. And Rails is also about convention. Convention means only if you want to do the things not the standard way, you have to configure stuff. If you use the standard way, you don't have to configure anything. No configuration files for the web app, no configuration files or pesky configuration files for the databases, stuff like that. So it's really about convention. And Rails is also the third philosophy in Rails is division. So actually division of labor. There are certain parts in your web app that have certain duties to fulfill and nothing else. So it's really about division of labor. The thing you probably have heard is this MVC, Model View Controller. I will explain that later. So each part of your web app has a specific task, and only that task. This makes it possible to change one thing without touching the other. And this makes it very fast to develop Rails apps, and it makes it also very easy to maintain Rails web apps, because you don't have to touch everything, you only touch specific parts. So another philosophy of Rails is variation. You probably know that as DRI, don't repeat yourself. Variation means you shouldn't have many different butterflies implemented. You should have one butterfly and then have a variation in color. So this makes it very easy to add stuff. So you don't have to always repeat yourself and write new code. This is also, like I said, to get shit done, because you have to write less code. And in the end, you have to maintain less code, because you only vary the stuff and not rewrite it from scratch all the time. And the most important philosophy of Rails is verification. It's testing driven, right? You implement something from the test case. That means you first describe how you would like it to work, then write a test case, and then that test case will always verify that it still works. So every change you do, you run the test afterwards, it will just verify that your stuff is still working. And Rails brings a very powerful testing framework for that. So these are the core philosophies behind Rails. It's convention. Only if you want to do it your way, you have to configure stuff. It's division. There are only certain parts, or your app is partitioned in certain parts that have a specific duty to fulfill. It's variation, don't repeat yourself. And it's verification test stuff. So let's go into details. Before we can work together in this workshop, we got to install Rails, or Ruby. Ruby is the language behind Rails. So yeah, we got to install Ruby. And openSUSE, which is probably on your laptop, brings Ruby, but not always in the latest and greatest version, because Ruby and Ruby on Rails are fairly new. They are moving very fast. But don't worry, we have this awesome build service project, Devil Languages Ruby, where you can get always the latest and greatest Ruby version. So you should install the package from that build service repository now. Either via Yast or via Zipper or whatever. If you need help, just tell me. You can also just visit this URL and it will show you installation instructions. Please let me know how it goes. No, you can install it here. It's fairly the same. Yeah. No. Well, it is okay-ish, but it's better if you use the OBS project, because it's Ruby and Rails are moving very fast. Yeah. Nothing? Except if you're using Rails and Ruby already, but I don't. And it's not used by the system, so it's okay. Oh. There is. Or it's okay. Just click on it. So, anyone has problems? I see people with paper, they will have a hard time to install Ruby. Sorry?
Which version of Ruby is it?
Oh, it's 2.0. Yeah. Yeah, you should go to that side. Who has Ruby installed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, still wait. In the end, if you have Ruby installed, you can verify that it works with Ruby-V. Oh, I probably there's still people typing the URL. Huh? Is it working? The build service? Oh, okay. So anyone still has problems installing Ruby? I can help. No? So who has Ruby installed now? Robert, not. Okay, just verify it works with Ruby-V. So if you have Ruby installed, we gotta install Rails. And Rails is a Ruby extension. And Ruby extensions and libraries are handled with their own package manager, which is called Rubygems. It's a simple package manager like any other, like Zipper or Get, or even very similar to pip for the Python framework and blah, blah, blah. So you can use it to Rubygems to install, update, remove, and stuff like that. So you need to call the gem, which is the command line for the Rubygems, and gem install Rails. This will fetch the latest Rails version that there is from the Rubygems repository on the internet. So install Rails. And let me know how it goes. If you have problems, I can help you. The party is going on, obviously. So who has Rails installed now? Who? No one else? Sorry. Oh, true. Okay. Let's see. While we're waiting on the internet, as always, Rubygems is not only the package manager, but also the repository of all the Ruby extensions, and there is a lot of stuff for Ruby. And you have frameworks like Rails, you have library extensions that make it possible to code some stuff. You have applications in there, you have command line clients in there, stuff like that. It's a whole world of stuff for Ruby and Ruby on Rails. Finished? So who has Rails installed now? No? Sorry?
Can't find the header file, ruby.h. Why is it looking for ruby.h?
Oh, it's probably building something. That shouldn't be the case. But then you need to install Rubydev.
Okay.
So it's
I can do that.
it's a very basic package. Already installed? No. Oh, okay.
Now I got it.
So you have Rails? No? Stupid internet. It's always so slow. Oh, it's, yeah, you need to install the package ruby-devil. So zipper and... No, ruby-devil. Ruby, oh, you need to install ruby-devil, you know, with zipper, or the package. No. The development files, you know. So zipper in, yeah, or yum install ruby minus devil, like development. Yeah, you too. You have to install ruby-devil package.
Wait, what?
So again with Yast or zipper or what you use.
Yeah, just.
Ruby minus devil develop.
Okay. Something like that.
Not there? How did you install Ruby?
From the link we have.
Okay. Then you can
Shall I try again?
if you open the link again.
Where is it? This one.
No, this here. Yes, there. No, internet.
I'm missing this one. Okay.
How was it? Same one?
With Ruby does
Okay. Anyone else has problems installing Rails? Yeah, you gotta install Ruby Devil, obviously. Kind of stupid. So who has Rails installed now? Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You maybe?
Yes, the documentations are too
Yeah.
important.
No, that's true.
Or do we need documentation?
No, you don't.
No.
So any problems with Rails installing? There.
Documentation. Sorry.
Oh, you have installed the Ruby-Devil? You have? Can I see the error again? better.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. Okay. Anyone else with problems installing Rails? Everybody has Rails now? Okay. So, now that we have installed Rails, we ought to use it, right? Rails, the package you just installed, brings a new command into your system, which is the Rails command. And you can simply use it to create a new application, and it will set up all you need to run it. So go to some directory where you can write and call Rails new my app. This will create a new Rails application. Looks good. Works? Sorry? Sometimes.
Okay, stuck in the same.
Still running. No, it's finished. No. Nee, vielleicht rehashen. Rehash. Ist deine Shell das irgendwie noch nicht findet oder so? Aber kann man eigentlich sagen, ne? That depends on where you have called gem install Rails. If as root, then it's system-wide. If you call it as user in your home. If you call it as user, then in your home. And system-wide. No? Is it as root? Can you? Try Rails dash and then tab. Maybe it has a prefix. Oh, okay. So, for those of you who have installed Rails with as root, you have the command is not Rails, but Rails 2.0.
Okay.
Run again.
2 point?
No, just again. Hit enter.
Yeah.
So, because when you stop it, it's not installed. Yeah.
Okay, it's not bad.
So Rails is working. Who has created the new app? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, not enough.
Nothing to do and that kind of command.
Yeah, it's probably also called Rails 1.9 for you. So who has the my app directory done? You? Okay. You? No? Oh, you already have stuff. That is nasty. Where did it come from? Yeah, you should. No, that's okay.
I cannot stand Ruby.
Just press yes. That's it. Hmm?
I think it's
Yeah.
installed. Okay.
Yeah, it's also
Ah,
2.0
2.0. Okay.
or whatever Ruby version. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so when you run that command, you see it outputs a lot of stuff. Like it has created directories, files, blah, 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 configuration. This is the convention part and the framework part of the philosophy, right? We just create a new app and there's a standard way a web app is set up, so it's a simple command to just do that. So you can already view your app when you go into the directory my app and call Rails server and then go to this URL. So it's localhost on port 3000. So just go into your my app directory, call Rails server. Oh, there is. Can you scroll down? Yeah. Oh, you have Ruby 1.9. Can you scroll down? Try Rails server again. Oh. What distribution is that? Can you search for V8? V8. V8. Yeah. You should install that.
Dev or the V8
No, the V8. No, just V8. Still not. Hold up. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Dots.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
I have problems with sqlite.
You have?
Fate integrate native extensions.
So you need to install the sqlite devil package. No zipper or
Yes, I have done that.
minus devil.
Example of the dev normal one. It's good.
Sorry?
When I installed SQLite, because it was required, I think I installed some algorithm.
Cool. So who can see his Rails app on that URL? You? Him, obviously. You? No?
After I put the server, to server like that, I was curious. I was like,
Try Rails S. Ruby. Try.
the root directory.
Oh, you need to be in the web app, in the
Yeah.
my directory. Sorry, I didn't notice. That should work. Oh, no.
Okay. So,
So don't have no wait. So who else can see his web app? Yeah, I see it. You also have a problem?
It has no battery marks.
Oh, okay. But there's oh. But maybe you can watch here and see how it goes. Robert? Still having problems. I don't know. It's a very basic package function. Everybody has to invent their own. Stefan? Okay. Cool. So go to the URL. There you are. So you guys are still installing gems? Okay. But anyway, also doesn't work? No, where's the Rails app? Have you called Rails server?
Yes. Wait, I have done it as root.
Okay, in the console. But there's nothing in there. There's no. You need to do that in the My App directory that you have created. You know? You remember where it is? Yes.
I have done that before.
Ah, okay. There you go. More problems. Scroll up.
Why was
No, it has a problem somewhere.
in create root?
No, scroll up. Stop. Oh, you have no permission to create a directory in that where you are. Maybe you've created this Rails directory in as root or something. Yeah, you have.
Yes, I have created that.
So change it. So everybody can see his Rails app. Stefan can, obviously. Robert, what's with you?
And if it needs 100, then I'll still be here tomorrow.
No, it shouldn't be that much. Okay. Mm-hmm. Ah, cool.
I have created all before.
Still no luck? Only 2 left? Cool. Okay. So, but basically, what we have done now is creating a new Rails app. And as most of you can see, it's already functional. So it's already serving pages. And that's, you know, half the stuff Rails does, just serving HTML pages. So let's kick off some stuff, because up until now we just have the standard Rails app. And if you look into your directory, you see a lot of different files and a lot of different directories and stuff like that. And that is the separation philosophy I have told you about before. So you have your app directory. If you look into that, you see more directories, which are called assets, controller, model, views. And that is the separation that I previously talked to you about. So this concept of model view controller means that you have your data and you want to manipulate it and display it. So you have to have your data somewhere, so it's in the database. And model is the representation of the table in the database in your Rails app. So there aren't any models in your app yet, but a model guides the database. Then you have controllers. Controllers take input from the browser or from the user and do something with it. Maybe they ask the model for information, like if you have in your database a row with people and names attached to them, it might ask the model for the name of a specific person. And then display the stuff through views. And there's also a directory in your app directory called views. And the views are simple. You could use simple HTML files, but they are mostly used with some how do you call it? Henne and stuff like that. Oh yeah, they're using template files. So explore your stuff in your My App directory. Open some files, look at them, and if you have questions, just ask me. I'm here. Oh, open. Do VI. Gem file with einem großen G. Gem File, genau, Enter. Dieses da auskommentieren. Ja, das. Also das Kommentar wegmachen. Nee, das. Da über. Da drüber. Wo? Genau da. Und speichern. Und jetzt Bundle.
Was mache ich da?
Bundle. B-U-N-D. Nochmal Tab. Ja, genau. Install. So you can look at the configuration, the gem file, there's a README in there, all standard Ruby stuff. You see, there's JavaScript, style sheets, images, you could have more stuff there. Assets are the stuff that make your web application work. Like There's also a public directory, test directory. Just explore a bit. So up until now, we just have created an empty app. If you go to it, it will just serve a standard HTML page from the Rails server you have called. It doesn't have any data. It doesn't have any controller. It doesn't have anything, just a simple view. So we have to create some way to show something else than the standard page. For that, we need to create a controller, because if we want to display something, a controller needs to take the input from the browser, be it show me some page, and generate, or not generate, but show the view files. So with your Rails command, either with 1.9 or 2.0 or whatever, call Rails generate controller welcome index, which means Rails, okay Rails, generate me a controller that is called welcome with one function called index. Does it work for you?
Can't find Rubygems. Ah, there's Rubygems.
Don't you have called? Oh, okay. You need G++. G++. Fehlt. Man muss dann mit Zipper installieren. Ja. Musst du mit das Paket mit Zipper installieren. Zipper in G++. Das sollte gehen. Versuch mal GCC minus G++, also dasselbe. Nee, dasselbe mit Zipper in. Also Zipper. Nee, GCC minus G++. Oh. Nochmal sudo zipper sh. Nochmal se. Ja, einfach. Plus. Search. Oh, ja.
Die zwei Pakete müssen das.
Nee. Fehlt irgendwas. Such mal nach C++. SE, C++. Okay, jetzt GCC minus C++. Nee, du bist noch in Zipper. Also du kannst einfach install GCC minus C++. Who has generated a controller successfully? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You don't? Oh, sure. So you can see from the output what it has done. It added a root. It added some files and directories. It added a test file. It copied or added some assets, stuff like that. So again, you don't have to do anything, you just have to call the command, and it does everything for you. So what does that do? one of the things it has done is created this file. Apps, views, welcome, index, html.erb. Open it. Look into it. Simple HTML.
Jetzt kannst du einfach Steuerung D und dann nochmal da. Ja, und dann nochmal. Ja. Nee, Bundle install musst du machen. Bundle. Ja.
Okay, so you see it's simple HTML. Change it to something else, like hello world, for instance. So or add something else, an image or other text or whatever. Nicely. Robert? Still not. What have you done?
One gem at a time. Now I need sqlite, and I don't know what else is coming next.
You can also, no, bundle as well.
This is when you do Rails new my app.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's like 3 or 4 minutes. And then it comes up.
Really? Then it's the internet here, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has changed something in the HTML file?
Because I have Windows,
Oh, okay.
ik verwijder eigenlijk nooit dat
Ja.
het instead of VI
Yeah,
it will work.
maybe. Try, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Because VI
Yeah,
won't
I know. Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. Looks good. So change the HTML to something.
I use Nano because it's more helpful.
Yeah. It's also a cool editor. Okay. So once you have changed the HTML to something else, you can go to this URL. So the same thing again, /welcome/index.
Oh, looks good. So you can go to in your browser to yeah. There you are.
Okay.
So now you have to, in the same directory, do the Rails or generate controller welcome index. Yeah. So go to your app /welcome/index, and you should see your changes in the HTML file. You also need to wait. Do you see your changes? So change it again to something else and reload, and you see it will instantly show up. Sorry? Yeah. That's some nice feature about Rails. If you call it with Rails server, it will start up a local web server and will watch the files for changes and display them automatically. So you have done your first view in Rails and your first controller. So, do you notice something? Why do you think it's /welcome/index? Why isn't it /index? Or / whatever? It's because in Rails apps, the standard way to call something is by controller name, welcome, and then function name, index. So it will go into if your browser requests that page, it will go into the file app controllers welcome controller.erb. You can look at it. It's an app controllers, the file. You can look at it with your editor or and you see, if you open the file, it's very basic. There's nothing in there, really. Right? Just some standard definition. So this is where most of the work in Rails apps happen, in the controller. Because it sits in the middle, right? It receives the input from the browser, so from the user, and then it might ask the database for stuff, and push that through the view, which you see then in your browser. This is the usual way how it goes in Rails. So,
we have conflicts. If you call it twice, maybe. Right. No, it looks like you have created it already. Can you look into the app directory? No, yeah, it's app controller. So it's another subdirectory controllers. No. Just go into the controllers and you already have it. Welcome controller. Can you open it with VI or whatever you use? So it should work. You have called it twice. So it's okay. So there's another part of Rails, because, right, if we would have done some sensible stuff and not just outputting some random HTML, and we do more controllers and stuff like that, you would end up always with
these controller name function doesn't really work for a web app, right? You need to have a root page, so an index page. For that, another important file for Rails is the roots file. You can open it in your editor. You see it? So it's in the config subdirectory called roots RB. When you have called the Rails generate to generate the controller, it has added something to the file. What do you think it has added? Yes. So, what do you think has your Rails generate call added to the controller, to the root file? Tell me. No? It has added on the second line this get welcome / index. Get is the standard way of HTTP to get something. So now we can trick Rails into using that as our root page. And as you can see a few lines down, there's a commented line with root welcome index. If you uncomment that and save the file and just go to the root of your web app, so 0.0.0.0:3000, you should see your welcome index page. So that one without the part at the end.
There it is.
Oh,
So, does that work for everybody? Okay. So now, the tricky part for you. Who wants to explain to me what we just did? Not you. And maybe what is missing? What didn't we do? Remember, we have models which guard the database, controllers which take input and give it back to views, and they show it. Which part didn't we use? We don't have any data yet. We're just taking input and outputting HTML. We could have done the same with a simple HTML file and pointing the browser to it. So now comes the interesting part, right? Because at the beginning I explained to you that web apps are data and manipulation of it and displaying it, right? But we don't have any data yet. So we need to add data. And for that, you also have a nice Rails command, which helps you with doing that. So you can call Rails generate scaffold. I use post because maybe our app is a block, so we have posts, and they have a title, which is a string, and a body, which is a text. So generate that. Rails 1.9. Work. What? No, it's not that bad. It's just they have to use the attach always the numbers to the commands. So once you call it, you see it has done a lot of things. And that is called scaffolding. It has created the controller, the views, it touched the root files, it added a model, tests, all that stuff, way more than the Rails generate controller method did. So, how do you think you can access that? Sorry? Look at your roots file. Config roots. You know, config roots RB. Config roots. Look at the file. Just, yeah, with your editor or something. So, how do you think you can view a post? The scaffolding already did everything for you. That's the convention part. You just create a standard Ruby on Rails web app scaffolding for posts. So, how do you think you can view that in your browser? Figure that out. Look into your app directory, remember what we did before. Show me the, oh, you already have it. That's good. No, you don't have it. Yes. So, what do you see when you open your web app and try to exit it? An error. Why do you think that is? Why do you see the error in your app? I mean, it says why it is there, but why do you think it is there? Why is there an error when you display, or when you access your app? No idea? Right, no database. Because that is something that Rails only touches when you tell it to. Because the database is very important. It holds your data, right? It's what your app is all about. And it only touches that if you tell it to. So if you look at the error message, it already says what you need to do. So you need to run the migration, which is another nice feature of Rails. You don't really have to take care of the database yourself. Rails does that for you. Only if you tell it to, but it does that for you. So you can do the rake, db migrate, and it will set up the database and fill it with the table with the right setting. So you never have to really do database design by hand. You can just use Rails for that.
Which database does it use? I used it.
Good question. Which database do you think it uses? Some magic one in the internet? Sorry? Sorry?
SQLite.
Yes. So where is it? Your database. What do you think? Where's your database? SQLite databases are just files. Where do you think your file is? Sorry? No? It's all, he has it. He knows where it is. Where do you think is your database? Look for it. Do you have it? There's a DB folder, right. There's your database. It's just a simple SQLite file. Okay, so remember that one? We have a welcome controller with the function index, right? And when we go to that URL, it outputs the stuff that we have put in the index HTML file. How do you think you can access your posts? We haven't any yet, but which URL do you have to go to? Sorry? Try it. Okay. Yes. So where do you think you have to go? To posts, /posts. The index one is the standard one. It will run the standard function. So you just have to go to posts. What else is there in the posts controller? What else could you do? I mean, if this would be our blog and we would have posts with the title and the body, what else can there be? So look into the controller, into the posts controller. Oh, did you run the array db migrate? Okay, but you need to do array migrate. So, this will set up the database. Sorry? It's an app controllers. No? CD app. Oh, you haven't? You have? Show me. Wait.
Now I'm in my app directory,
Yeah.
and I have my
Okay.
post here. I go to CD app,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Then CD control of
Yeah.
controllers.
Yeah, of course.
So that
So look into your post controller. What else is in there? There are a lot of functions in there. Not only index, which lists all the posts, but what else is there? Nobody? There are like new, create, delete, right? So how do you think you can add a new post? If you want to view in your app the function new in your post controller. Remember that one? So it's simply post/new. If you go there in your browser, you will get a form that will let you enter a post. So you can enter it, enter a title, a nice body, and if you save that, where does it go afterwards? If you add a post, it shows you the post. It's just /post. If it's the first one you've added, it's /post/1. If it's the third one, it would be /post/3. Right? So now you have a real web app. You have data in your database with the post, with the title and a body. And you can add new posts, you can delete them, you can edit them, stuff like that. So if you add a little bit of CSS and maybe some JavaScript, you have a blog application. And this is, remember, we really only use 3 or 4 commands, and you already have a blog. I know it's very basic, and it doesn't look like much, and it doesn't have logins and blah, 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 but this is the basic stuff, right? So in 1.5 hours, you have gone from nothing to a simple blog. And this is what Rails does. It makes you productive, because now you can add stuff. You can think about, okay, I have posts and listings. How, for instance, can I display them at my front page? List all my posts. You have done that already with the welcome controller, so try it. Do you remember how you changed the front page? You have gone into the config roots file, and there's a root setting. If you know, say, in that file, not root welcome index, but root posts index, it will list all your posts on the front page. If you call your app. No? Doesn't work? No. Yeah. So now you already have your posts on your front page. And basically, this is, you can replace very complex blocks like WordPress or whatever with that, right? You had a little bit of CSS, maybe had a login system, stuff like that, and you have a block. And all the web apps, the cool web apps you know that are out there, are nothing more than that. They have a database where stuff is in, they display it and allow you to change the data. So Twitter, Facebook, all the stuff like that are just basic web apps, right? Sorry? Sorry? Oh, I use Sublime Text, which is a commercial controller, but I used to use VI. Sorry? No. Well, there you can download it. But there's no package, but you can download it in. So you can run it on Linux.
Let's talk about the scalability of the
Mm-hmm.
So this application you made so far is scalable. The greatest. I mean, you can put it in a host. That's it.
Yes.
What about the public folder? And will the other people be able to use, for example, the end and the new?
Yes. So far, what we have done, we have no access control. If you put that out there somewhere, everybody can add posts, delete them, change them, because there's no access control. You have no users. So, but this is just stuff like that, right? You could generate a scaffold with user, and then have a name and maybe a description. And then you can have users in your app. Then you can, build from there access system. Or you can, which is what everybody else does, it's using gems. So you don't have to do everything yourself. There are a lot of gems for instance, for access control. If you go to rubygems.org and search maybe for device, so D-V-I-S-E, or for can, C-A-N, they are Ruby gems. You would just add them to your gem file, bundle install, and have all the functionality they bring. So this is how you do basic web apps. And that is what Rails is all about. So as you can see, the philosophy is get shit done. In 1.5 hours, you have a very basic, but a blog application. I dare you to do that in any other framework that is out there. It won't be that easy and that fast. Cool. Any other questions? Sorry?
In order to host the Ruby, we want to make a host, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do?
That you can do a lot of things. There are hosting sites for Ruby applications where you can just upload your application and they do the hosting. The most famous one is Heroku. Heroku, which is where you just push your source code and they run the app for you. Or you can use your own Apache server. There's a Ruby gem called Passenger, which is for Apache to run your stuff. There are other possibilities like the Red Hat stuff. Yeah. So, things like that. Any other questions? No? Okay, I'm supposed to remind you that tomorrow I think tomorrow afternoon, there will be a Ruby on Rails user group meeting in Thessaloniki. So they will post the location and date and stuff like that right next to the schedule on the main floor. So if you have further questions, either come to me. Adrian knows Ruby on Rails. Cheyenne knows Ruby on Rails. Tom, who was just here, is a Ruby on Rails guy. So if you have further questions about extending your apps or how you do this and that, just find one of us and ask us, or come tomorrow to the user group meeting here. There we will have more Rubyists who will be more than willing to help you. Good. That's it. Even do you have any more questions? Okay, that's it. Thanks.